He wasn't executed by his enemies. He was poisoned by his own student. Just a slow death handed to him by the one he trusted most. That was the fate of Jiraiya. And no, not the anime version. The real Jiraiya. The one who lived in the shadows of real Japanese folklore centuries before fan art and fandoms. A master thief. A magic-wielding warrior. A man who learned the ways of the toads and used their power not for war, but for rebellion. He was a rogue ninja, and that label wasn't poetic. It meant one thing. You were no longer protected. You were a target. In the world of shinobi, loyalty was the only currency. Break from your clan, and your name was scratched from memory and added to a kill list. You could be stronger than 10 men, wiser than 100, but once you walked alone, the only thing you carried was your own death sentence. Jiraiya wasn't the first. He wasn't the only. But his fall shows exactly why it sucked to be a rogue ninja. They were seen as threats, not warriors, not heroes. They were hunted by the lords they once served, betrayed by lovers, outnumbered by former allies. And when they died, they were buried without names. In the eyes of their world, a rogue ninja was already dead the moment he walked away. Jiraiya simply lived long enough to make the mistake of trusting someone again. In the world Jiraiya came from, no one was born free. Every shinobi belonged to a clan, and every clan was bound by blood, debt, and silence. Children were taught to kill before they were taught to speak. Loyalty wasn't a virtue. It was a rule, enforced with blades and burned into skin through ritual. You did not leave your clan. You did not question your orders. You did not ask why the innocent had to die. You obeyed, or you disappeared. The punishment for disobedience wasn't exile. It was erasure. Your name was scratched from records, your family forbidden to mourn you, and your body, if found, left unburied. This was the reality of a shinobi, obedience or oblivion. And yet, some walked away. Some broke the code, vanished into the woods, and chose to live without banners or masters. They were branded as rogue ninjas, marked not just for death, but for disgrace. Hunted by their former clans, hunted by their enemies, and feared by the people they once protected. Most were caught within weeks. Some surrendered, some fought. A few survived long enough to become myths. Jiraiya was one of them, but he wasn't the first. Before him, there was Kagemaru, a legendary shinobi who defected after refusing to assassinate a child. He lived in the mountains, sending warnings to villages before enemy attacks, protecting the people his clan had targeted. He was called a demon by the very warlords whose lands he spared. When they finally found him, they buried his body in a cave and sealed the entrance with fire. Then there was Aya, a Kenoji who broke her vow of silence to expose a conspiracy inside her own clan. She was hunted for 9 years, changing names, changing faces, until her own sister killed her for honor. Her corpse was returned to the clan not as justice, but as a message. These were not isolated stories. They were patterns. Jiraiya knew what the end looked like. He knew it from the start. And yet he walked the same path. He chose the toads. He chose the magic. He chose the people. And for that, he was already condemned. They called him a thief, but the villagers called him a guardian. Jiraiya lived like a ghost, moving from province to province, targeting corrupt lords, stealing their gold, their weapons, and their secrets. He gave what he took to the peasants who could never afford protection, taught farmers how to trap scouts, helped burned villages rebuild in silence. He was not noble by title, but by action. In this, he mirrored a legend the West would later call Robin Hood. But Jiraiya had no forest, no merry band, no songs sung in his name. He moved alone, always watched, always one whisper away from betrayal. His power came from magic, ancient spells taught to him by a sage who lived deep in the mountains, bound to the toad spirits of the swamps. These were not illusions or tricks. They were real. The ability to vanish, to summon storms, to turn his body to mist, and call forth toads larger than horses from realms unseen. With that power, he became untouchable by conventional soldiers. But the more he used it, the more he was feared. To the common folk, he was a savior. To the lords, he was an abomination. No clan claimed him, no temple protected him. There were bounties on his head in more than a dozen prefectures, each describing a different face, a different crime, and the same reward. Dead, not alive. Unlike Robin Hood, Jiraiya had no romantic resistance behind him, no charismatic rebellion. His victories were quiet, his escape routes mapped in dirt, his meals taken in darkness. He lived with the knowledge that if he was seen, he was already in danger, and if he stayed, he was already a target. He wore no color, no symbol, no allegiance. His only companion was the magic that made him strong, and the certainty that strength was why they wanted him dead. Because a rogue ninja with power was not an exile. He was a threat to the system itself, and in a world built on control, threat meant death. Jiraiya's crime wasn't theft, it was independence. That's what made him the most hunted man in the Empire. In the dark forests of the eastern provinces, 3 rogue ninjas once stood together, not as friends, but as elements forced into a temporary orbit. Jiraiya, the Toad Summoner, wore his rebellion like armor. Tsunade, the mistress of healing and destruction, stood with calm violence. And Orochimaru, the serpent, never smiled unless he already knew how the story ended. They were the unstable trio, the toad, the slug, and the snake. Nature itself warned of the outcome. Their magics clashed even when still. When Jiraiya called forth rain through the mouths of frogs, Tsunade answered with tremors that split the ground. Orochimaru would simply vanish and reappear elsewhere, coiled around their failures. For Jiraiya, this trio was hope. He believed that shared exile could forge something stronger than trust. That 3 outcasts could build a code the world couldn't break. He spoke of justice, of protecting the weak, of balancing their gifts to help villages forgotten by warlords and clan banners. Tsunade listened, sometimes, but her gaze was always somewhere else, on debts she had not paid and losses she would never admit. She saw the alliance as a tool, nothing more. Efficient, but fragile, and Orochimaru never pretended. He agreed to join because he wanted to see how the experiment would fail. He called it a test of temperament. He believed in results, not sentiment. In power, not principle. The imbalance was immediate. Missions turned into standoffs. Villagers feared their presence more than the raiders they were supposed to stop. Jiraiya would heal a town with rainwater and root magic, only for Orochimaru to dissect a man in public the next day, just to learn how his lungs worked. Tsunade would step between them, but she never stepped far enough. Deep down, she knew the snake was learning from both of them. The trio never collapsed. It eroded. Orochimaru began disappearing more often. Tsunade began showing up later. Jiraiya started talking to his summoned toads more than his allies. They had created something powerful, but they had never built anything together. No home, no cause, no future, only borrowed time. And in the silence between summons and scrolls, Jiraiya realized something terrifying. Even among other rogue ninjas, he was alone. Jiraiya wiped out an entire battalion by himself. It wasn't a boast. It was a rumor whispered in the huts of border villages, in the back halls of imperial courts, and in the dreams of the dying. Riding the wind with his toads, Jiraiya struck down an army that had blockaded a rice region for weeks. The people hailed him as a protector. The lords labeled him a threat. He didn't demand gold. He didn't take land. But his power alone was enough to make the ruling clans shiver. A rogue ninja with no banner, no master, and now no equal was too dangerous to be left alive. Weeks after his victory, assassins were sent, not by the army he destroyed, but by those he thought he helped. Jiraiya escaped, barely, and vanished into the mountains. Word spread that he had gone mad, that his mind had dissolved in the swamps with his summons. But it wasn't madness. It was clarity. He saw the truth. Power without allegiance is not strength. It's a spotlight. It makes you visible, vulnerable, and ultimately disposable. Jiraiya was not the first. Decades earlier, another rogue named Shumu had burned down 5 enemy castles in a single campaign. The clan that hired him promised freedom. When the war ended, they poisoned his camp, burned his name from their records. In the world of rogue ninjas, power was never security. It was bait. Jiraiya sat at the edge of a cliff that night, watching the clouds curl around a distant fortress. He didn't cry. He didn't rage. He just whispered one question. Where do we go when everyone wants us gone? Some wandered until they fell. Some fought until they disappeared. But one rogue ninja found a third path. Orochimaru didn't search for belonging. He searched for eternity. Just a way to keep existing, no matter the cost. Orochimaru was never meant to be a rogue ninja. His talents were too refined, his ambition too calculated. At first, he moved through the shadows like the others. He helped small clans eliminate corrupt lords, brokered peace in secret, trained orphans who had nothing else. But Orochimaru never stayed. Wherever he passed, strange disappearances followed. A daimyo's daughter vanishes. A rival shinobi turns up with his face flayed off. A sacred scroll ends up emptied of every technique it once held. Rogue ninjas feared him, not because he betrayed the code, but because he rewrote it. There's one story from the Kawa region, where a blood feud between 2 houses had lasted for 3 generations. Orochimaru arrived offering help, disguised as a wandering herbalist. He poisoned both sides. Every heir, every strategist, every warrior above the age of 12. While Jiraiya bled in battlefields for villagers who would never say his name aloud, Orochimaru built a network of spies, cultists, and weapon keepers. He created safe houses carved inside mountain skulls, tunnels lined with preserved corpses still whispering secrets, and scrolls inked with blood that responded only to his touch. Some say he fused with a serpent deity in a forbidden ritual that involved eating his own shadow. Others claim he cloned himself hundreds of times and let the originals rot. The truth? No one knows which Orochimaru still walks. That's the point. Jiraiya was still fighting for some sliver of honor. Orochimaru was fighting time itself. Where others broke or were buried, he mutated. He made himself untouchable. In a world where rogue ninjas were hunted like dogs, Orochimaru became a ghost, then a myth, then something worse. When elders in the capital whispered about rogue threats, they didn't speak of Jiraiya. They feared the one who no longer needed to run. The one who had no code, no allies, no face. The one who proved that to survive long enough, a rogue ninja had to stop being human. Orochimaru didn't fail by breaking the code. He survived because he did. But not every rogue ninja took that path. Some believed in rules, even when those rules were killing them. Sarutobi Sasuke was one of them. A warrior raised in war, loyal to the Tsunade clan, feared for his speed and stealth. He could move through trees without making a sound, strike from above with blades dipped in poison, then vanish like wind through branches. He was called a hero when it served the lords. But when alliances shifted and enemies became friends, men like Sarutobi became threats. His loyalty didn't matter anymore. His silence became dangerous, his presence unwanted. So they hunted him, not for betrayal, but for existence, for being too skilled, too free, too hard to control. Then there was Hattori Hanzo, not myth, not exaggeration, a real ninja who shaped the fate of Japan. He protected Tokugawa Ieyasu, secured paths, led ambushes, and brought death to those who threatened peace. Without him, the Tokugawa shogunate might never have risen. And yet, once peace was won, Hanzo became a reminder of war, a weapon no one wanted to hold. Some say he retired into shadows. Others say he was erased. The truth? No one ever retires as a rogue ninja. You disappear. You become a whisper. Or you're hunted until the whisper stops. These weren't villains. They weren't Orochimaru. They followed a code, believed in it, died because of it. In a world where power fears independence, rogue ninjas who cling to honor have the shortest lives. Their names echo through time, but never with happy endings. Being marked as a rogue didn't make you free. It made you visible, alone, and a target. And among all those targets, Jiraiya stood the tallest. Not because he was the most dangerous, but because he refused to disappear, even when the world made it clear that he should. He kept moving from town to town, teaching, protecting, vanishing before the lords could strike. But the hunt never stopped. Whispers turned into wanted posters. Bounties grew heavier. Then came Orochimaru, not with hatred, not with fury, but with cold precision. Jiraiya had sensed it would be him. Long before their final meeting, he saw it in the way Orochimaru stopped using names, the way he talked about bodies like tools, the way he laughed when Jiraiya warned him. Still, when Tsunade appeared beside Orochimaru, Jiraiya hesitated. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't aiming to kill, but she wasn't standing beside him either. She begged them both to stop, to disappear together, to abandon everything. But Orochimaru had no past to go back to, and Jiraiya had nowhere left to run. The fight wasn't fair. It wasn't meant to be. Orochimaru had evolved into something else, no longer bound by flesh or fear. Jiraiya fought anyway. His toads were slower, his tricks familiar. Every strike he landed felt like a memory clawing its way back into someone who didn't he want to remember. Tsunade didn't intervene. She watched, silent, as two futures destroyed each other. Jiraiya bled through the mouth first, then the eyes. The poisons were already working before the blades touched him. Orochimaru whispered something only Jiraiya could hear. Maybe it was an apology. Maybe it was nothing. He collapsed without drama. No flash of light. No scream. Tsunade stepped forward, knelt beside his body, and closed his eyes. She wanted to say his name, but the words stuck like ash. When they left, they didn't bury him. The rain did. Mud covered his face, then his chest, then everything. Days later, children passed by and found the broken flute he always carried. They didn't know his name. They played with it, then left it behind. There were no tales of him sung by villagers around a fire. Only rumors scattered like ashes in the wind. Some said Jiraiya still lived, hiding deep in the mountains, whispering forgotten jutsu into the mist. Others claimed he had become a spirit animal, guiding lost souls through storms. But the truth was quieter than that. His story, like so many rogue ninjas before him, dissolved into silence, not because he failed, but because no one dared remember the kind of man who disobeyed. Across the lands, the few who survived knew better than to speak his name. Sarutobi Sasuke vanished. Hattori Hanzo died fighting for a banner that no one dared to raise after he fell. Even Orochimaru, victorious and twisted, never mentioned Jiraiya again. In hidden scrolls and cracked wall etchings, the outlines of a man riding a toad would sometimes appear. But no one claimed authorship. It was safer that way. Being a rogue ninja was never about freedom. It was about choosing to walk barefoot through a field of blades, smiling, knowing no one would walk with you. Jiraiya smiled like that. Until the end. He didn't want monuments. He wanted choice. And that, in his world, was the most unforgivable crime. Not all rogue ninjas were rebels by nature. Some were just born into wrong clans. Others refused missions that violated their conscience. But all shared one thing. The system had no use for them. Once unaligned, they were hunted. Because they became unpredictable, uncontrolled, dangerous. Rogue didn't mean wrong. It meant inconvenient. The price was constant exile. No rest, no trust, no future. You could master 1,000 jutsu, win 100 battles, and still be chased for who you used to be. Even the strongest ones were broken slowly, poisoned by solitude, turned bitter, or worse, forgotten. And when they died, the villages didn't mourn. They erased. That's why it sucked to be a rogue ninja. Because there was no place left to call home.